an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Derry Girls, Season 1, Episode 1, called Episode 1. In this episode, we meet a crew of diversely different personalities in a school that is a mess, at a time that was a mess. And this show is very funny, and I'm very excited about it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha, and this episode is the first of a series that is set in the 90s in Ireland, which I did not realize. I saw it was called Derry Girls, and I immediately assumed that Derry was in England. I did not know that it was in Ireland. And I also didn't know that it was going to be set in the 90s. But it turns out that it's set during the Troubles, as it's called. And for those who are not familiar with what that means, I'm going to read the Wikipedia summary of it because I feel like it's just going to be a lot easier. The Troubles was an ethno-nationalist conflict in Northern Ireland during the late 20th century, also known internationally as the Northern Ireland Conflict. It is sometimes described as an irregular war or low-level war. The conflict began in the late 1960s and is usually deemed to have ended with the Good Friday Agreement of 1998. Although the Troubles primarily took place in Northern Ireland, at times the violence spilled over into parts of the Republic of Ireland, England, and mainland Europe. The conflict was primarily political and nationalistic, fueled by historical events. It also had an ethnic or sectarian dimension, although it was not a religious conflict. A key issue was the constitutional status of Northern Ireland. Unionists and loyalists, who were mostly Protestants, wanted Northern Ireland to remain within the United Kingdom. Irish nationalists and Republicans, who were mostly Catholics, wanted Northern Ireland to leave the United Kingdom and join a united Ireland. So it was it was such a mess, and there's so much that I don't know about all of the ins and outs of it. But basically there was a Catholic minority that felt like they were being discriminated against. And there was a campaign to end this discrimination. The authorities attempted to suppress this protest campaign and were accused of police brutality. It was also met with violence from loyalists who alleged it was a Republican front. Increasing intercommunal violence and conflict between nationalist youths and police eventually led to riots in August 1969 and the deployment of British troops. So that's the beginning of it. And this, like I said, is set in the 90s. So this whole thing is, it's not like this conflict is a main event in this episode, but I suspect from the way this episode is set up that it's going to be coming up fairly frequently in the story, because what this seems to really be about is just what it was like to live as a regular teenager who is not necessarily invested in either end of the debate or conflict in and of itself. You just want to live your life, and these things feel like they're unrelated to you until they begin to interfere with your day-to-day life. And one of the main things in this episode that is a result of this conflict is the fact that there is a boy attending an all-girls school because they think that this boy, being English, will not do well at a boys' school, that there will be some, violence potentially there. So they put him with girls because it's supposed to be safer for him. I would allege that it isn't, based on what we see so far this episode. But y'all, we're just going to get this party started. So the episode begins with a an overview, like a voiceover of a young girl talking about how I live in Derry. Sometimes people call it Londonderry. And it's a very small town where everyone knows everyone and is in everybody's business. But I sometimes wish that I could just be left alone. And this, voiceover, we're watching like a tank roll down the street with soldiers in it. We're watching a group of older boys, young men, spray paint over the London in Londonderry so that it just says Derry. It's obvious that we're being set up that there's a conflict still happening and that this town is not escaping unscathed from it. However, you're also under the impression, as you listen to this voiceover, that the girl who feels this way is the one reading this. It's not. It is her sister, I guess, who is reading her diary out loud in her room to her while she's asleep. Which, I swear to God, is one of the best intros. Like, that is so... It's not only... Oh, thank you, Ashleigh. Says her cousin Orla. Orla is like the Luna Lovegood of this crew. She does not understand social niceties. She does not understand when to keep her mouth shut. She doesn't understand what is appropriate to say when. And it results in moments like this where you're just like, where do you find the balls? Because she just comes in this bitch's room and opens her diary and reads it out loud while she's asleep, waiting for her to wake up and find her doing it. And then we find out later is going to do a book report on her cousin's diary. This bitch. Oh, when she said, I'm doing my book report on it, I died. I was watching this with my headphones on while Owen was sitting reading comics in the chair in the corner here. And just like cackled a couple times. And he kept on getting startled by it because it's very sudden. Like the jokes drop and everything is done in such a dry tone that it can take a minute before you realize that there was like, there was a joke at all. Do you know what I mean? And then the laugh is very sudden as it sort of like registers with you. And she is downstairs in the morning, like yelling about this whole thing and telling her mother about how teenagers have rights now and that Macaulay Culkin is looking to divorce his parents. And she says this like, because, we know about this, like the emancipation, if your parents aren't taking good enough care of you and if you can make a case that you're better off on your own. But her mother misunderstands and thinks that this is somebody that she actually knows. And also that they are Protestant. It's just the whole way that this goes. Macaulay Culkin isn't a Protestant, Ma. And then she stops and thinks about it and says, well, he might be. But I didn't mean him at Friends Across the Barricades. Friends Across the Barricades, y'all. Like, this is just such a strange way to grow up that I feel like the youth of today are going to relate to a lot more than I do if they go back and watch this at some point. And that's a very strange feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like I just can't imagine living in the middle of a conflict that has fingers in your life in all these different areas, but like that has been around for so long that in some ways you don't even necessarily think about it anymore. Does that make sense? Because like, when I read that little Wikipedia thing, they were like, oh, this started in the 60s. 30 years this has been going on, Like most of the people that she meets throughout the course of this episode, this has been going on their entire lives, or at least since they were very small children. And I just think that's got to be numbing after a while. So also, oh my God, can we talk about her dad? Her dad and his fucking father-in-law. When are you going to leave her alone? We've been married. What does he say, for 21 years or something like this? He's like making fun of the job that he has. Like, oh, work. Is that what you call it? And he looks at him like, yes, it is. calls him, says, you should be driving them, you useless shite. Oh my God, why don't you just leave my Mary alone? We've been married for 17 years, Joe. There it is. We have 2 children, and because we're in love with each other. I'll find some dirt on you yet, boy. I've got people working on it. This is maybe one of my favorite parts of the entire episode. The fucking father-in-law who cannot come to terms with the fact that her daughter married this guy. 17 years they've been together, and he's still going to try and find a way to, like, break them up. I love it so much. It's the best. Ashleigh's asking, did you recognize any of the actors? Granddad Joe, for example. Granddad Joe did look really familiar, but I couldn't place him. Is he from, like, Harry Potter or something? He's, like, got one of those Barristan Selmy. Oh, okay. Yeah, wow, it's been a while for him, huh? Yeah, I did not put that together. See, this is the thing. I wish... As inconvenient in some ways as using Amazon Prime can be, I love their X-ray feature because you can just wave your mouse over something and it tells you every character's name, every actor's name. You can click on the actor and it'll show you like a brief IMDb of the things that they've done most recently or that they're the most famous for. And it's super informative, and Netflix doesn't have that. And it can be really hard for me to keep track of character names when it's a brand new thing that I'm covering, and it's basically an ensemble cast where there are a bunch of different characters. So I have an IMDb up here, but y'all are going to have to help me out with names here and there. So also it turns out that they're like, I guess, living with, their Aunt Sarah, and Orla is Sarah's daughter. And Sarah is also like a huge mess. She comes out and she's wearing her hair like she's about to go to prom or something in like 1968. And she wants to go use the sunbed, but there's been a bomb scare, which means that she won't be able to use the road that they normally use to get everywhere. And she swears that obviously, we're going, like, the whole point of this bomb is to make life difficult for ordinary people. And the whole way that she handles this and determines that it's like about trying to play havoc with regular folks is so amazing. And the main girl, and what is her name? She is watching her aunt with this expression on her face. Is she Erin, I think? She is so fucking over her aunt. Like, you can see that this is a woman she has been putting up with. And between her and her cousin, she's just like, I can't that we're sharing the same house. Like, I'm so done with it. Oh my God, can we please put a wall between us? Like, I love the expression on her face so much. Okay, it is Erin. Cool. I remembered somebody. So yeah. I don't think it's very high on anyone's political agenda, Aunt Sarah. And Sarah says, I wouldn't be so sure. Well, I'm sure you wouldn't, Sarah. So Erin tries to sneak out wearing a blazer instead of, or trying to wear a jean jacket instead of the blazer that is actually part of her uniform. And I think that she is a senior, if I'm not mistaken, or she might be like in second to last year, like a junior, third year, I guess they'd say here. Right. But, her daughter tries to be like, I'm going to be an individual and I should be allowed to express my individuality, until my mom tells me she's going to get the wooden spoon, at which point I shall put on my blazer, please and thank you, goodbye. I don't know how many of you have been hit with a wooden spoon. I was not brought up in a household where I got hit often. I've been slapped a couple times, but never with like an implement. However, I was being babysat by an aunt one time who did hit me with a wooden spoon. That shit hurts like a motherfucker. It's crazy. It should not be allowed. And I really understand her backing down on this. I have to say, out of the entire cast, I feel that Erin is probably the weakest actress. She has a very amusing face, but you feel it that she's acting in her scenes. I'm hoping that she starts to feel a little bit more natural as time goes on. But she is the only one that I really get the sense that she's like in a play, if that makes sense, versus everyone else who just feels like they are who they are. And her face in this moment was so over the top when her mother says to get the wooden spoon that I was just like, girl, all right, we get it, but you need to calm down a little bit. And she comes out with her friends later, and they run into this other girl who is wearing her denim jacket over her blazer, as it turns out. And says, what is this? I thought we were going to be individuals this year. And Erin says, well, my mom wouldn't let me. And she says, well, then I'm not going to be an individual on my own. And takes her backpack off and pulls off the denim jacket, which I found very amusing. So here's one thing, and you know, this may be different for other people living in other areas. And I don't mean by other areas just the fact that they're in Ireland. I mean people in other areas in the US as well. I often see TV shows that are set with kids in high school where they're out doing stuff before school starts. I cannot emphasize enough how that would never, ever happen, ever, at my school. Nobody went and did shit before class because class started at 7:30 in the fucking morning, which is absurd. And there was nothing open. You didn't get to go and get coffee. You didn't get to, like, now there's like Starbucks that open at like 5 a.m., but that wasn't a thing when I was a kid. And there was just, you know, there was maybe like a convenience store here and there or something, but there was nothing close enough that people would like gather there before school. So this whole scene where they're at like a, basically a convenience store, I think, and she is trying to like, I don't even remember what it is that she's trying to buy, but she's wanting to send stuff to Africa, I think. She's trying to like get money from everybody to help her purchase this thing. The whole thing is just like this, there's this weird vibe here that there are other kids from the school here as well. They're selling like, pens and notebooks, and like there are soccer balls hanging from the ceiling. So I feel that this is a school store, but we didn't have those. So I'm not sure if this is if it's what it looks like to me or not. But yeah, this girl is trying to raise money, and she keeps on asking people to sponsor her, and talks about how they all should really appreciate that they weren't born in Africa because they don't know how lucky they have it. To which I'm like, listen, girl, no offense, but y'all's school bus gets like hopped on by a bunch of men carrying automatic weapons. I wouldn't really feel so high on your own shit. And that's the point of that moment, is that she's there, she's in the middle saying, we don't know how lucky they are. And the other girl says, oh yeah, we've got class. And then immediately they're stopped and soldiers come on. So I think that's supposed to be like, you know, the show acknowledging, we think we're so elevated, and look at this bullshit conflict that we're living with 30 years into the making. Ashleigh says, I don't think it's a school store. It just looks like one of the shops outside the school bus stop. Okay. So now see, I wouldn't really think about this either because I didn't take the bus to school. I had to walk or get driven, and there were no stores near bus stops. It was all like residential areas. So I just like, there are certain things that I'm sure are like a ritual for other people that they would, and for me, it was just not a thing. So I think you're right. It's probably because they wind up on the bus later. What a weird, like, the idea of being able to shop before getting on the bus to school would have been such a luxury. I think we would have loved that. But I'm always fascinated by the ways in which people's, like, experiences differ. Because little things like this would be a very big deal. But yeah, this dude who's running the shop sees her dump all the candy back into the bin that she pulled it out of because she was going to buy it. And then her friend convinces her to give her $2 for the Africa donations. And this dude flips out and says, like, if you touched them, you bought them. It's the law. And when she says, I don't think it's the law, he says, it's the law if I say it's the law, smart hole. Smart hole. I'm putting that one away in here, guys. I'm filing it away because I enjoyed it. What a weird thing, smart hole. Not even smart mouth. Jesus. But yeah, so this is just, and when she's like, I have to give my money to Kamal. And he's like, well, who the fuck is Kamal? He's a wee Ethiopian fella. Do you want to sponsor me, Dennis? And he looks at her like he is going to bite her fingers off her hand and then just screeches, get out. Oh my God. Guys, I am just seeing that when they scramble out the door, the sign says Dennis's Wee Shop. Oh my God. I'm so jealous. I want a wee shop. Oh, that's so good. I love it so much. Dennis's Wee Shop. So at this point, when they leave, there's this dude, David, who's out there putting up these posters that I guess are supposed to be like, protest posters. I didn't really get a close look at them. Oh my God. And she tries to say something like, act normal, but then walks up to him with this really exaggerated fake laugh, tossing her hair back and going, no way, are you serious? To no one. There's nobody near her. They're like 4 to 5 steps behind her. And it just looks so creepy and weird and sad. And this girl, I don't know what it is about her, but she's like simultaneously looks like she's 14 years old and also looks like she's 42 years old in the face. I don't know what's going on, but there's something happening there. And so when she does stuff like this, there's something about her look that exaggerates everything that she does to such a degree that I'm just like, oh my God, this is not okay. You need to stop it. And this whole, like, this moment with her trying to act cool and impress this guy and him asking, like, do you have a lighter? And she's like, no, I don't smoke. Oh, shit. Why don't I smoke? And then her cousin does have a lighter, not because she smokes, but because she just likes melting stuff. And I love that she feels free to say that to this dude. It's a weird thing to say. She doesn't give any fucks. They're just, okay, I'm sorry. I'm seeing that Ashleigh says that they're advertisings for his band. Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, he has a gig that he's inviting her, and then he makes it clear he's inviting all of them, but you'd specifically like me to go. I mean, just so we're clear. Oh my God, she's looking at him like she wants to eat him alive. It's really a lot. This poor dude, I don't think that he's ready. And it turns out that, like, it's going to be at a time that's close enough to school that when she winds up getting detention, she misses it. And I feel like that seems very early for a gig, but also I don't know how gigs tend to work, so it's fine. Oh, Ashleigh says, if you got around to watching Cursed Child, that boy's Albus Severus. Okay. No, I never got around to watching it. Yeah. All right. That works. Albus Severus. He, oh God. Okay. Who's the girl with the cousin? Amanda? Is that her name? Am I right here? This chick, Michelle. Thank you. This chick is amazing. She's a complete disaster. And her decision to say motherfucker about everything is one that I fully support. And I love her weird, sad cousin who is so confused and nervous and weird. And yeah, she's just, I enjoy her every time she opens her mouth. Well, come on then, Ball Ache. Are you going to introduce yourself or what? Hi, I'm Michelle's cousin, James. Why is he making that funny noise? He's English, Orla. That's the way they talk. Oh my God. I fucking died. I died. Why is he making that funny noise? You mean talking? Is that what you meant? And he just, this actor that plays her cousin is so good at looking vaguely nauseated. Maybe like just, he's so nervous. The whole thing is so, I feel so bad for him. I really do. And it turns out at the school, they don't have any boys' toilets because it's an all-girls school. And then the only other alternative is the staff toilets, which they also won't let him use. So he winds up having to pee in a garbage can because nobody will let him use the bathroom. And he's just trying to hold it all day long. And it is amazing and seems like exactly the sort of thing that would happen. Like, I know it's played for comedy that, oh, isn't it funny? Nobody wants him to use the bathroom. But like, seriously, I have like, you know, there were times where women were being integrated into jobs that had previously been for only men. And there were no women's bathrooms on the premises either. And that's just that's a pretty common thing. So then they wind up having to share with men, and it's really uncomfortable for them. And it's just seeing it like reversed, where he's not actually in danger the way that women were when they integrated into men's fields, but it's still very uncomfortable. It's great. I enjoy this, what's the word I want? Plot device, I guess. And then she says, he's my Auntie Kathy's Wayne. I told you about me Auntie Kathy. She went to England years ago to have an abortion, never came back. Never got the abortion either. Lucky for you, James, huh? Ha! And walks away. And he just goes, I didn't actually know that. And I'm just like, oh, James, no. Oh my God, you guys. And I enjoyed that reference as well, because like, getting an abortion is a huge problem in Ireland. Like, it has been, I'm not going to get into it, you guys, but like, holy shit. If you look into it, there have been some atrocities, and recently there have been some strides made, but oh my God, it is just a disaster. Like, you think the U.S. is bad. The U.S., like, places in the deep South that are still deeply conservative, like evangelical Christian, are on par with parts of Northern Ireland, especially in terms of their views on certain things. And so, like, you know, and there are places in the South where, like, they can say it's technically still legal, but there's like nobody who performs them available for 600 miles kind of thing, because they've been defunded, or everything within the law that can be done to make it impossible to access has been done. Because we can't make them illegal across the board in the United States, but we'll do everything we can to make it impossible to get one. And it is just, yeah. And then there were, I think that there was that revelation like a year or so ago about all of those babies that were buried under this church or boarding house or something. Yeah, it is just a really like, ugh, yikes. So anyway, I am going to move right on along because that is a deeply upsetting topic. But I like the fact that in this comedy, they fucking address that. Like, that she had to go to England to get an abortion, you know, and she didn't wind up getting it. But that if she were going to, she'd have to leave the fucking country for it, you know? Like, I liked that. So they're walking about to get to the bus stop, and they're all confused about the fact that he's in their uniform and is apparently going to come to their school. And they're like, but what? Why? He's a boy. And she's like, yeah, they were really worried about him getting beat up at a boys' school because he's English. And I'm just fascinated by this. And I'm very fascinated by the way that this school is going to receive him after this episode, because obviously there is some shit that's going to be coming up, despite their best efforts to make things easy for him. And by best efforts, I mean not really best, just efforts. So they get on the bus, and there are some first years that are sitting in the seats all the way at the back, which are the seats that they are supposed to be able to sit in. And this girl who is sitting here looks like nothing initially. She is just like milky faced and has these freckles and her hair in this really doofy style. But as soon as Michelle is like, you're going to need to get up and shift yourselves, and all the other girls start to do it, this one girl stops them and is like, no, I don't think so. I don't see any reason for us to move at all. And Michelle's like, well, we'll beat you up. And she says this in this way, like, I didn't think I needed to say it. And now that I have to say it, I don't know that this is actually true, but I guess I'm going to say it. Like, I really love this. She doesn't know. So she starts to, and the girl is like, well, listen, if you're going to beat me up, then just go ahead with it. And Michelle's like, not now. We'll beat you up after school. The girl says, grand. I'll meet you after school and you can beat me up. But I think that you might want to check in with my sister, Maggie O'Connell, who apparently is known as Big Maggie. And we see her later on in the episode, and she is quite tall. And it turns out that they are just going to let this shit slide because nobody wants to deal with Big Mandy. So they have to find other seats. And it's a very humiliating moment that winds up turning into this whole thing later because Michelle tries to act like that never happened, when in fact everybody saw it happening. And there are a million witnesses. And the girl isn't even like, the girl that they threatened is not worried about them. She's not concerned about getting beat up, obviously. She's just more like, you don't get to do that, though, just so you know. I also want to mention the fact that Michelle has so much gel in her hair. I know that this is not a subject that we need to worry about, but seriously, the whole way that they have decided to style her, and they, you know, she does look like she goes tanning, and she has more jewelry on than the others, and she's just a much louder, bigger presence than everybody else. I just identify with her a lot. Her giant ass hoop earrings. It's just a good time. So this is when the soldiers come on, and everybody's sort of like, well, I guess this is happening, and not really fazed by it, except for James, who's like, well, what's happening? And Michelle is looking at the soldier up at the front, who frankly is very good looking, and says, do you think if I told him I had an incendiary device down my knickers, he would have a look? Oh my God. Michelle, he's a soldier. Some of them are rides. I'm willing to admit it, even if nobody else will, because I'm a beacon of truth, Erin. Oh, she's amazing. I love her so much. But he is super hot. Listen, he is. Just, I have to say it. So they get to school, and of course I should have expected there to be nuns everywhere. I think I like kind of low-key did expect there to be nuns everywhere. This girl comes up to them, and she is obviously a student, but she is very like, she has the feel of like a Percy Weasley. Could I just have a quick chat? I'm Jenny, and she has her weird braid that's like over her ears, somehow styled down her side, and she has this look to her face of just like a Weaslish sort of personality. I immediately was like, I do not care for this woman. And the way everybody reacts, none of them really like her either. I think she's got braces as well. And she says something to him about his bold hair because she thinks that he's a boy, because nobody understands that a boy is coming to this school. It's never happened. Of course, it doesn't occur to them. I would do it myself, but I don't have the bone structure. He's a fella, Jenny. Oh, anywho. Oh my God. Part of my role as prefect is welcoming the first year students. She's a prefect. She's got a badge, guys, a little yellow prefect badge that looks like a shield on her outfit. And I have never felt more excited at the fact that it looks almost exactly like a Hufflepuff prefect badge. Like, it's one of those little moments that I'm like, oh, it's in real life and it's happening. Like, it's a show, sure, but it's based on a real life thing, right? But yeah, and it has come to my attention that there was some sort of an incident on the bus this morning. There was no incident. Apparently you guys threatened one of the new girls, said you were going to beat her up. That's lies. There was quite a few witnesses. I mean, we said it, but as a joke, as in, we're going to beat you up, but like, in a jokey way. Wait, well, actually, the thing is, that's not actually funny, is it? Like, at all. Oh my God. Another moment where I just cackled. And the whole thing is just like, obviously, she doesn't want to report you, is the alleged way that she's going for this whole thing. No, she very much wants to report you. This girl lives to report people. Never do shit around her, because she will always feel like it is her personal sacred duty to put you out on Front Street herself, because that's what she wants more than anything in life, is to be, I think it's like getting off on the like secondhand attention more than anything, you know? Oh my God. She kills me. I hate her so much. So yeah, the whole way that she tries to act like, oh, I think that she doesn't actually care that much, like, because she claims that she doesn't, but also I get the sense that she's more upset than she is admitting to being. And all of this is looking like, maybe I won't report you. I don't know. Until, of course, Michelle gives her the finger. And then that pushes her right over the edge so that she goes and tells the teachers about it in the end, after all. So yeah, there's this really terrible speech given by Jenny about how all the first years are little seeds and being planted in the soil of this school and being watered with the nourishing waters of education and yada, yada, yada. And then comes the sister, who is the best character ever written, period, bar none. I love her. I want her to be my disapproving aunt. I just can't get enough of this fucking woman. Some lovely sentiments there. Some very beautiful words. Unfortunately, that's all they are. Sentiments and words. What you've just witnessed is a piece of fiction. The reality, I'm sorry to say, is much harsher and far more brutal. Oh my God. Let me tell all of you girls to keep your guard up. And then she gets real close to the mic and goes, and watch your back. And I'm like, oh, good God. But she's not fucking wrong, is she though? Not even a little bit. Oh my God. Because this is the thing, right? We want to all pretend that we're all friends here and this is all love and we're all happy and whatever. But that's not how it is when you are in school, period. If you're in an all-girls school, I don't know how that shifts, because the dynamic has got to be so very different when there are not boys involved every day. But I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I tend to imagine it would make it worse, but also that's in some ways, like, you know, my internalized misogyny. So I don't know if it's worse or better. I don't know. But oh Lord, I just can't with this woman. She's so real and to the point about it. Just like, listen, we can all pretend that you're just here to learn and grow, or we can be real about the fact that you're fighting for your lives in here and you can't trust anybody and don't trust anybody. And this is going to be hell for a lot of you. And I'm just like, I just love her so much. Oh my God. Krista's saying there are a lot more fist fights in an all-girls school. You know what? I could see that. And by fists, I mean the most frightening fights I've ever seen. Ashleigh agrees. Yeah, all girls schools can be really violent. You know what? That makes a lot of sense. I could see that, because when you're not constrained by having boys around and the like ideas of gender roles being enforced in front of your face that way every day, and you're not worried about a guy jumping into the fray and like overpowering you, you're just going to let loose, aren't you? Like, I could totally understand that. And I mean, I have been jonesing to get in a fight since I was in high school, and I never have gotten into one. So that's all pent up. So I could definitely see if I had had a chance letting that loose. This is just, so yeah. James will be the first ever boy to study here at Our Lady Immaculate College, is what it's called. I find it funny that they call it college. There were concerns for his safety because, unfortunately, James happens to be English. Let me make one thing clear. I will not have a repeat of the Mr. Mullen affair. You guys? Let me be clear here. Sexual assault is not funny, and I'm not trying to make light of it. But the delivery of this line, I just can't. Student teacher, 2 fourth years cable tied him to the monkey bars and started dry riding him. He was very, very good looking, so you've nothing to worry about. Oh my God. What is this place? Cable tied him to the monkey bars. Lord, I can't. Oh, and James, every moment, James looks more and more like, I don't know why I'm here. I hate this so much. Bless him. Okay. So later on, they're all hanging out together, and Erin is begging Michelle to come with her to see this band. And Michelle has no interest. Orla is not here. Like, she is unavailable. They're trying to talk to her about whether she'll come, and she's talking about how she loves her fingers. And then there's this other chick, whose name I don't remember. I feel like it's Claire. Claire is a weird, like, Claire is every terrible thing. She's like, obviously a bit of a hypochondriac, very just like high maintenance in general, incredibly cowardly, and like capitulates the instant that anybody pushes on her at all. And I just like, she is great for comedy and an infuriating person to be around, that you're just kind of like, why are you here with this group of people? And this is when James starts to ask Michelle if she knows where the boys' bathroom is, to which she responds, "You're doing my head in," because she just doesn't care about him. She doesn't feel like she has custody of him the way he clearly feels that she does. And then they get an announcement over the intercom. Erin Quinn, Orla McCool, Claire Devlin, and the wee English fellow. Oh my God. So they get all called about the attempted bullying. And this is when Claire immediately loses her mind. I didn't do anything. Nothing even happened. But if anything did happen, it was obviously Michelle. And Michelle has to be punished. If you're going to punish anybody, just let it be her. Meanwhile, she looks like she's like hyperventilating or about to like throw up. I'm sort of shaky. I think my blood sugar is dangerously low because she didn't like go to lunch that day. Whatever happens in there, we have to stick together, but then completely cracks the instant they're in the room. It's good stuff. The acting in this scene, her freaking out, pointing at Michelle, and the nun sitting back and just letting her go loose, staring her down, letting the silence spiral for a moment. Well, I think it's safe to say we all just lost a bit of respect for you there, Claire. Oh, God, I love it so much. This is some good shit, guys, from beginning to end. So, yeah. It turns out, that Michelle is going to play it like they knew Big Mandy was this girl's older sister all along. And we would never, ever threaten her because we know that. But she didn't know that, of course. Meanwhile, Orla's in the back over here talking about how if you lie, it makes Our Lady cry, and that makes it rain. Isn't that right, Sister Michael? Who asks how old she is, and then she says, yeah, you might want to think about wising up. Oh, I love this. I love this Luna Lovegood character in here. I love it so much. What a weird addition. She is such a strange little duck. It's so good. It was all just a misunderstanding. I promise, sister. And so Tina, who it turns out is the name of the girl that they like threatened, says, I didn't even report them. Basically, I'm not a fucking snitch. And the nun says, well, did you not snitch because you're intimidated? And she snort laughs and then is like, oh, sorry, you're serious. No, I'm not intimidated. And then they're like, all right, well, I guess we can let this rest because, you all are apologizing. And I assume that you accept their apology. And Tina's like, no, I don't accept their apology. And the nun just doesn't know what to make of that. So she decides, well, I have to do something. So I guess it will be detention. And poor Erin is staring at the clock because she is missing his gig. And she is so pissed that she wound up in here because it is 100% Michelle's fault. And of course, Michelle does not want to admit that it is her fault. She is acting like she had nothing to do with it or that we were all in this together. And, really it comes down to not only did she threaten the girl, but also she gave the prefect the finger, which is what pushed her to report it when she wasn't even gonna, I don't think. I think she was, but maybe she wasn't. And any chance that they had of getting away with this was lost the instant that she did that. Claire, meanwhile, is slumped over and acting like she's about to die. And then Orla pulls out her diary and begins to read it again. And they start to fight until one of the nuns is like, what is happening? And takes custody of the journal. Orla, what are you doing? I can't believe too. Honestly, you guys, who amongst us has had a diary? I have to think that her parents also kept diaries. And if that is true, the fact that her parents don't react more severely to the fact that she had a diary that was taken and read by a cousin feels like I don't understand where her parents are coming from at all. That's such a basic breach of privacy to me that she's rightfully flipped out over, and they just did not react to it in a way that feels remotely appropriate. So I feel like her parents are probably terrible. I mean, her mom did hit her or threatened to hit her with a wooden spoon because she wasn't going to wear her blazer. So maybe that's self-evident, but nevertheless. So then we have Michelle trying to put on some lipstick, and the nun takes it and puts it in her own purse. Shouldn't you put that in the confiscated box? And the nun just tells her, quiet, and then begins to read her diary, flipping through it while eating a sandwich. This show, you guys, I love it so much. I love it so much. I'm like, this is such a... Okay, so then it looks like she went to sleep. We find out later that she is dead. She dropped dead. But in the moment, it just seems like, oh, maybe she fell asleep. As they're going and examining this woman who looks to be asleep, we have James in the back of the room getting his dick out and pissing into a trash can. And Claire steals the dead nun's sandwich. You guys, will you ever get your self-respect back, Claire? So Erin, at this point, who has just had it, she gets up and starts to climb out the window. And at this precise moment, the other nun walks in. She catches Orla with her hands around the dead nun's head, positioning her as if she is about to like take a selfie or something. He is still pissing in the trash can. Aaron is about to sneak out the window. And Michelle is rifling through the nun's purse to get her lipstick back. It is a beautiful scene. And their parents all get called in. And they were told that he was like peeing on the nun's dead body while making sandwiches. Like the whole story has been so weirdly like convoluted. It's so good. Also, I have to say that Aunt Sarah, despite her hair being a disaster, her contouring game is very much on point, and I really, really need to take some lessons from her. It's great. But yeah, the way that this is all framed. And then we have the nurse who comes running in, and I don't remember whose mother she is. Is she Michelle's mom? Her name is Deirdre. I think she must be Michelle's mom because she immediately goes, "What are you doing rifling through the mom's handbag?" And Michelle tries to be like honest with her and just say, "She tried to steal my lipstick," to which her mother replies, "Well, she's a woman of God." And the other nun, actually, she was known to be a bit light-fingered. And I love that she says this while filling out this report and doesn't even like look up and make eye contact the whole way that this whole thing goes down. And James goes back to London and leaves him there, James' mom. What? He just leaves her, and when he's like, "She went without me," and reacts in a very rational, understandable way, she just snaps at him, "Oh, dry your eyes, James." Good God, poor James. He is really getting put through the ringer here now. And yeah, Claire's dad comes in. "Oh, so you're killing nuns now. Is that how it's going to be? Really?" Her death was extremely shocking and unexpected. We're still struggling to understand what happened. Can I just ask whether or not we're taking into account the fact that she was 98 years old, and maybe that sheds some light on the situation? Does anybody else have any thoughts on it? Maybe that had something to do with it? It's pretty good. Struck down in her prime. Yeah. This is all, just this whole last scene is just so great. Maybe her death was natural, but I have my doubts. And then Orla begins reading from her journal out loud. "Injustice is something I've become accustomed to. I am, after all, a child of the crossfire, surrounded by conflict. But I choose to rise above it. The path to peace is paved with tolerance and understanding. Violence is never the answer." To which Aaron yells, "I am going to ram that so far up your ass," and leaps at her to grab it back. And that is where the episode ends. And it is wonderful. It's a perfect ending. I loved it. So yeah, guys, this is really fun. I'm hoping that I'm doing this justice, because comedy can be really difficult to talk about, because a lot of what I did in this episode, for example, was me just reading back to you the exact dialogue and being like, "Isn't that funny?" But that is funny. And I want to repeat it to you and point it out. So I hope that I'm doing okay with this. It's a tricky thing to discuss, and I don't have enough background in the understanding of the conflict between Ireland and England to give my perspective on much of that. And even if I did, I don't feel like it's necessarily relevant in the context of this episode. So I just hope that I hope that you guys enjoyed this coverage. And, also that episode was only 25 minutes long. So I have to fill an hour, and naturally me quoting things is going to be probably a big part of that. So Ashleigh, I hope that I did what you wanted. I hope that this was good. I'm just not experienced in covering comedies. This is something that people have brought up before, when I've mentioned what I'd like to cover next, and does anybody have suggestions? And people bring up a lot of different shows that are comedies, and it's always been something for me that I'm I'm not really sure how to discuss these things. It's a little bit easier in some ways if you have a co-host, because you can reference, and sometimes people will know like, you know, behind the scenes facts about it that you don't necessarily know. But yeah, I'm just trying to focus on the show itself and what I feel like they're saying right here. Ashley says, it's a conflict that goes back 400 years. You're forgiven for not having in-depth knowledge about it. Fair. Thank you. Krista says, I have books for you, Natasha. Lots of books on the topic, all from the correct side, of course. Krista, I do not want to read them. I'll just tell you right now. No, girl, I don't want it. You keep them. Keep them. There's some things that I'm like, I should probably get to know more about this. And there are other things that I'm like, I want no part of it. Thank you very much. You keep that shit to yourself. But anyway, all right. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. In about 2 hours, roughly, I'm going to be covering the next episode of Twilight, the next 3 chapters with Miles. So if you are a $5 and up patron, that'll be going up next week. So I'm excited about that. And then tonight I'm doing Dresden Files. So there's a lot coming up still. Ashley says, you're doing great, Natasha, and sent me a little heart. Thanks, Ashley. Yay. So yeah, guys, thank you all again so much for coming and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the commission, Ashley. And I will be seeing you all again soon. She's commissioned another one next week. So I'll see you soon with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.